Well, I'm not sure exactly where we were disconnected. Perhaps you can give me some idea of at the point that uh, our, our stream was interrupted. I do uh, apologize for that. Go ahead and log back on, and we'll see if we can determine exactly where our stream was interrupted. Okay. Uh, Probably was while I was into uh, the official. Uh, let's see if anyone can tell me what was the last thing you heard that might tell me exactly where our video stream was interrupted. The in in John's Gospel, we we were at chapter 4. Oh, I just finished it. Oh, thanks, Brinshay. So we've been off for quite some time, have we not? Uh, so so you missed the entire lesson, did you not? Let's see if I can get us back to that reading. Let's let's okay. So we had disconnected right after the reading. I do apologize for that. So no one texted me to tell me that we had been disconnected. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, good. So, you know, everybody log on and and let's turn to the reading, which is John chapter 4, 43 through 45. Uh, that's the first reading, and I will discuss that part first, which is the subject of which is Jesus returns to Galilee. All right. And then the second part of that is going to come from John chapter 4, 46 through 54. Uh, okay, let's look at 43. Uh, 43. After the 2 days, he departed to Galilee. 44. For Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his own country. 45. So when he came to Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him, having seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the feast, and they too had gone to the feast. That ends the reading. John the Evangelist uses a timestamp to mark the various transitions. All right. Thought for a moment that I had frozen, but I'm here. This is a familiar ploy. We've seen this in other places in John's Gospel, for instance, where John says after 2 days or after 7 days have passed. Jesus' travels have taken him from Jerusalem, the holy city, to Judea, to Transjordan and Samaria. He now departs for Galilee. This decision to travel to Galilee is explained in verse 44. The rejection he encountered in Jerusalem has prompted him to abandon his own kin and to go where he has been warmly received. He quotes a familiar proverb, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own home and among his own kin." Prophets are often disrespected when they are among family, friends, and acquaintances. Why? Is light shed on this problem by another proverb: familiarity breeds contempt. Who was Jesus? In Mark chapter 6 and verse 3, there is this quote, "Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us?" The rejection Jesus faced was not limited to his message. It included both his message and his person. Because of the shrill nature of prophetic utterances, the message of the prophet was often hard to digest. But deference was shown to the man, the prophet, who was a man of God. The gospel writer tells us that he came to his own, but his own received him not. They rejected him. Where was he to turn? He turned to those with whom he had spent most of his early life. For almost 30 years, Jesus had lived with the Galileans. But I dare say they did not recognize him for the man he was. Perhaps a miracle worker. They had seen him work miracles. But was he Messiah? Was he the Son of God? Perhaps their understanding of him was not quite at that level. Well, John the evangelist, writer of this fourth gospel, records that the first miracle that Jesus wrought was in Cana of Galilee. There appears to be an eagerness to hear him more passionately in Galilee than in Jerusalem. And so he returns to Cana of Galilee. The second part of our lecture today dealt with the official son, which is at John 4:46 through 53. And let me see. We lost so many that I am I was hoping that others might join us back so that we could continue with this lecture. Let's look at the second part of today's study, which is John chapter 4:46 through 53. Jesus heals an official son. And let's read these verses together, beginning with verse 46. So he came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had made the water wine. And at Capernaum there was an official whose son was ill. 47. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. 48. Jesus therefore said to him, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. 49. The official said to him, Sir, come down before my child dies. 50. Jesus said to him, Go, your son will live. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and went his way. 51. As he was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was living. 52. So he asked them the hour when he began to mend. And they said to him, Yesterday, at the 7th hour, the fever left him. 53. The father knew that was the hour when Jesus had said to him, Your son will live, and he himself believed, and all his household. 54. This was now the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee. That ends the reading. How do we know that the kingdom of God has come? Its dawning will be accompanied by signs. The initiated will read the signs and know that the kingdom is at hand. Mark writes in chapter 13, verses 1 through 8, 1, as Jesus was leaving the temple, one of the disciples said to him, Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings. 2, Do you see all these great buildings? Replied Jesus. Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. 3. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, 4, Tell us when will these things happen, and what will be the sign that they are all about to be fulfilled. 5. Jesus said to them, "Watch out that no one deceives you." 6. Many will come in my name, claiming I am he, and will deceive many. 7. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. 8. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places and famines. These are the beginning of birth pains. That ends the reading. Jesus' fame has spread like wildfire in small towns and in large urban cities. His name and works are legendary. A nobleman from Capernaum approaches Jesus with a piteous plea. His son is sick and is at the point of death. A nobleman, a man of wealth, of influence, position, of power. As important as his position was, there was one thing that riches and power could not bring him. If healing could be bought for silver and gold, then this nobleman would have given his last ounce of silver and gold to buy good health for his son. Was this his only son? Was this his firstborn? We do not know if this is his only son, but does a father plead for his son if he is an only child or the firstborn? A father's love is not restricted to birth order or birth rank. Today, this nobleman is a father of a sick and dying lad. In agony, he beseeches Jesus to come and heal his child. The father has left Capernaum and traveled to Cana of Galilee in hopes that he will see Jesus and will have the opportunity to place before Jesus his cause. John the Evangelist writes, "And at Capernaum there was an official whose son was ill. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death," verses 46 and 47. Take notice, the official, in the King James Version of this text, the word nobleman is used. Well, he did not send a servant or a family member or an emissary. He came himself. This illustrates the urgency of the need as well as the sincerity of the petitioner. When he leaves the house, he knows that his son is at the point of death. Is there enough time for him to reach Jesus? There are so many things that could hinder him, causing unnecessary delays, which could lead to his son's death. But the father cannot focus on the things which might hinder him. If he concentrated on these, then he might as well have stayed at home. He's not only determined, he is an optimist. But his optimism is not born of wishful thinking. His knowledge of Jesus has come to him from credible sources. He knows that Jesus is a healer. What is he to you? Has he ever healed your body? If he has, then tell the world, Jesus is a healer. Listen carefully to his words. Come, go down to Capernaum with me. He wanted Jesus to be physically present in the hospital or his son's sick room, where his son lies at the point of death. This cannot be a pretty sight. A sick room can be a frightening place, and the stench of death can be more than the human spirit can endure. He says to Jesus, come, go down with me. Well, as I think about this, we have come to know this as the ministry of presence. When the physicians have said we have done all we can, the ministry of presence is the last ray of hope for a grieving father or grieving mother. But did he expect Jesus to interrupt his ministry, rearrange his day because his need was urgent? Seems rather selfish, but are not all petitioners selfish? In fact, I wonder if every prayer is not a selfish prayer. We beg God because we have elevated our need over the needs of others, our troubles over the troubles of others, our pain over the pain of others, our sickness over the sickness of others. The nobleman saw nothing wrong with his asking or with Jesus interrupting his day or rearranging his schedule. His need is the greatest because it is a matter of life and death. In a world of relativism, there remains one constant: death. Instead of preparing for traveling to Capernaum, Jesus is the quintessential teacher. He never misses an opportunity to engage us in discovering new truths about the world around us or about ourselves. Jesus said to the nobleman, unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe. Verse 48b. I wonder if Jesus is being too harsh here. Did he perhaps misunderstand or misinterpret the nobleman's request? Was the nobleman testing Jesus' ability to cure sickness? No. Was he asking Jesus to perform some sign to prove his divinity? No. He was asking Jesus for help. A simple man whose heart is broken by grief and pain, in a moment of desperation, is willing to humble himself and beg. He begs Jesus to heal his son. Now, some may be convinced by signs and wonders, but I do not know if this man required signs and wonders to believe. He was a believer because it was impossible to do other. I think the nobleman belonged to this group. He was an incurable believer. In spite of Jesus' harsh words, it seems as if the nobleman doesn't even hear him. For as soon as Jesus finishes speaking, the man does not ask Jesus to explain his words. He does not offer defense for himself. He said to Jesus again, "Sir, come down before my child dies." Now, I find it interesting that this plea is not conditional. If you would do this, Lord, then I will do this. Lord, if you do this, then I will do the other. It is direct and to the point. his son's well-being. Indeed, his son's life hinges on Jesus agreeing to come down with him. So he thought. It is expected that Jesus knows what the circumstances are. And the man would dare not insult Jesus' intelligence. He simply says, "Come, go down with me." The nobleman knows that persistence is a requisite to answer prayers. In Luke's gospel, there is this familiar parable known as the friend at midnight. And the reading that I will give shortly comes from the New International Version. I tell you, even though he will not get up and give you the bread because of friendship, yet because of your shameless audacity, he will surely get up and give you as much as you need. So I say to you, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open unto you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks, the door will be open. That's Luke chapter 11, verses 8 through 10. The New International Bible translators define persistence as shameless audacity. The nobleman seems to embody this trait. He was not too proud to beg. Some of us are too proud that we will not beg God. But Jesus wanted to know the man's heart. The last words Jesus remembered were the pitiful words from a tortured soul. "Come, go down with me." Verse 50 reveals something about Jesus that the nobleman had not expected. Remember that he wanted Jesus to go to Capernaum with him. "Interrupt your schedule, Lord. Come go with me. The need is urgent." But that was the extent of it. But Jesus says to him something that he never thought possible or even practical. And what was it? Jesus says to him, "Go, your son will live." Verse 50. Now, do you not find it interesting, at least I do, that the nobleman does not ask Jesus a question. He does not debate the instructions. He does not seem as if he's worried, or he doesn't ponder, or he does not seems disgusted. He left Cana and traveled to Capernaum because Jesus said, "Go, your son will live." Verse 50. The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him, and he left. John the Evangelist, in the concluding verses of this chapter 4, tells us as the man was going down, his servants met him and told him that his son was living. Verse 51. The nobleman must be truly excited. Excitement overwhelms him. He probably could not contain himself. But then, in a moment of candid reflection, he asked his servant, "What time was it when he began to mend. You might think that to be curious. Well, we have seen this before, where John, the evangelist, writer of the book, uses what I call a time stamp. It becomes a characteristic of his writing style. Here again, he introduces another time stamp. He says, "What time was it that he began to mend?" And the servant said, "Yesterday at the 7th hour." And then it all comes together. The nobleman says, "That was the exact time Jesus told me to go." Well, the father arrived home. He saw his son well and whole. He rejoiced with his family. And not only did the father believe, but the whole household believed. Verse 54 is an epilogue to the story. John the Evangelist adds this. He says, "This is now the second sign that Jesus did when he had come from Judea to Galilee." This is the second miracle that Jesus performed in Cana of Galilee. If the miracles of the Gospel of John are more miraculous than the miracles of the other Gospels, then does this miracle fall into that category? And I think so. Let me point out a couple of reasons why. First is that not only is the boy sick, he is at the point of death. In other words, he's hopeless. The second reason is that the miracle is effected at a distance of more than 16 miles. In other words, the boy is at home. Jesus heals from a distance. The time the fever left occurred at the moment when Jesus spoke to the man, "Go." And so the healing is instantaneous. There is no progressive, no stages along here. Not only was the nobleman converted to faith in Christ, his whole household, his wife, children, servants, reminds me of one of the gospel songs we sang when I was a youth. It was, I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself. If this salvation is good enough for me, then it is good enough for everybody who dwells under my roof. Well, let's see. This is, I think we've kept everybody together as we have come back. Unfortunately, we lost some who did not log back on. But let's see who we have today. All right. And I do thank you for your faithfulness, for your coming back onto the broadcast. Well, let's see. We have Brent Shea, Fletcher, Robert. Good to have you. Alberta Smith, thanks for logging back on. Gloria Shields, thanks for logging back on. Kateria Martin, thanks for logging back on with us. I'm sorry that we lost our transmission. Uh, Inez, thanks for logging back on with us. Billy and Brenda, thanks for logging. Barbara, great to have you. Thanks for logging back on. Thanks, Eleanor, for logging back on with us. Inez, thanks for logging back on. Let's see. And Kimsey, great, good to have you. Okay, Inez asked a question. Verse that was it. That was in Luke. I think it's Luke chapter 11. That's the parable of the friend at midnight, and I was reading from the New International Version. I think that's where that is. Let's see. Are there any questions or comments? Let me thank you for staying with us. Jerry logged back on. Good to see you, Jerry. Thank you. Okay. Well, everybody have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, hey, let me hear you say